You are listening to a Clarkesworld Magazine podcast. I'm your host and narrator, Kate Baker. Greetings, Clarkesworld citizens. I hope this podcast finds you well. This is our last story for the year. For this trash fire of 2020. As we usher in 2021, I want to thank you for your support through this pandemic. Through the first podcast you listened to this one. Or if this is your first podcast, welcome aboard. I want to thank you for your support throughout the year. Whether it was spreading the word of Clarkesworld through Twitter, Facebook, or telling a friend, or if you had the means to do so, going to patreon.com/Clarkesworld to chuck a few bucks our way. We can't do this without you. We don't want to do this without you. We want to say thank you. So our last story for the month of December and for the year of 2020 is titled Songs of Activation and is by Andy Dudak. Now, Andy Dudak is a writer and translator of science fiction. His original stories have appeared in Analog, Apex, Clarkesworld, Daily Science Fiction, Interzone, the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, Rich Horton's Year's Best, and elsewhere. He's translated 12 stories for Clarkesworld and a novel by Liu Cixin, among other things. In his spare time, he likes to binge-watch peak television and eat hui Muslim-style cold sesame noodles. You can find Andy at andydudak.tumblr.com. May 2013 brought you Tacky Psyche. June 2015 brought you Asymptotic. June 2017 brought you Fool's Cap. And June 2019 brought you Field Mice. So with that, my dear listeners, I hope you can sit back, relax, and let me tell you a story. 1. Pineander has been reciting Song of Manifold Suns all morning, in overgrown, forgotten garden nooks or neglected library aisles, far from the mutterings of other desperate students. Ancient knowledge comes to life within him. By lunch, he understands complex marvels, the finer ethical justifications of the empire as worked out by the ancients, the properties of quantized space-time, which makes it the ultimate data storage medium and allowed it to be manipulated, colonized, and settled. In moments like these, the looming exam holds no fear for him. The Grand Arcade is full of other black-robed students by the time he arrives. The usual hubbub is subdued with the exam so close. Students quietly read or recite, fueling their brains with broth. Pinander's mind expands with activated lore. He sits with Jane and Philo. All right. A penitent Jane hunches over her steaming bowl. Philo studies a scroll. I'm not going to make it, he says. Where are you? Pinander says. The Temple Odes. Pinander explains the Temple Odes were songs. Well, some verses lend itself to silent reading, but not the odes. You should be reciting or singing. Jane giggles in her soup steam. Pinander reckons Philo is doomed. Intelligence goes a long way in the Imperial Service exam, but shyness can hobble you. There are soundproof study rooms for students like Philo, but to pass the exams, you must study constantly, at meals, in showers, in the loo, to and from study groups as you drift off to sleep. There's a lot of verse, like the odes. If you don't recite or sing, lore will go unactivated, remaining useless noise in your skull. The years and upload estivation will be for nothing. We're dropping fast now, Jane says. Her face is nearly in the porridge, her shoulders heaving with silent laughter. 2. Pinander hurries along the colonnade, whispering quantum pioneers as he goes. Each verse internalized means more activated lore. The brutalist cliff face of the estivation facility, dubbed the Crypt by students, looms over the campus. Pinander recalls emerging from a 7-year dream time in that place, the profound sense of loss. He was still ignorant when the nurses wheeled him into daylight. There was a peculiar weight on his thoughts, strange expectations and voids. He couldn't access the years of data in his skull. 3. They hear Philo has killed himself. He's one of 4 across campus that night. We're dropping fast now, Jane reiterates, high on study enhancement rolling in the glowing fungi of the faculty garden. Let's go, Pineander hisses. She told him where she was going. He tried to talk her out of it. Come with me or don't, she said. And of course he followed her, as always. We learn the classics, she says. Poetry, philosophy. For what? He can't get her out of here by force. He'll have to argue well. Our educations? You mean activated lore? Uploads activated by odes and epics and songs? Lore given context. It's a scam. She props herself on an elbow, glowing, staring up at him. It's a scam, Pin, and I can't take it anymore. Please, you'll be the last of us to wash out. Philo is the best of us and he's gone. He's gone because he was a selfish git. They were the mercenary three. They swore oaths to each other, and now the covenant is broken. Jane is right. Philo was the best of them. Pineander kneels and plucks a luminous fruiting body from the garden. It disintegrates between his fingers, spore illuminating the faculty square. Professors open windows and shriek obscenities. Fuck the lot of you, Jane screams. You're all complicit. You know what I'm talking about. She turns to Pineander. The bio-gloaming renders her demonic. I think they'll take me away now. There's something you should know. I love you too. No. What? Listen, there's a poet they don't want us to know about, a different context for the lore. There has only ever been one context. Pineander struggles to digest this. How's that possible? She was on the council that coded the lore. They eventually deemed her a counter-revolutionary. They executed her, but not before she could... The campus police are inside the compound, blaring commands amid rolling submission gas. There's a scroll floating about campus, Jane says. A selection of her verse. I think that's what got to Philo in the end, her poetry. You both knew about this? Pineander says, hurt. We didn't want to distract you. We thought you had the best chance of passing. One of the three had to, but you were wrong. You might be the only one of us who can handle it. Handle what? The dichotomy, the dual mind, having both contexts in your skull at once. Maybe it was meant to be you all along. Fuck graduating anyway. No one should graduate from this place. The police close in, dispelling the garden glow with floodlight. Pineander drops to his knees. Jane stares into the nearest police torch, her pupils shrinking to pinpoints. I don't regret it. The physics kept me going. The grand mystery of it all. She puts it in a new light. The physics too? Not just the philosophy? Yes. Her name is Sinecure. He's heard the name on lips of classmates. He assumed it was a new pop idol. One of many things he doesn't have time for that his rich classmates do. There's just one copy of the scroll. As far as I know, Philo gave it to me. I read it and passed it along to Ivier. And Ivier offed himself 2 days ago? You could try his girlfriend, Raph. Since when were they together? Gossip, another strange pastime of moneyed students. Submit, an officer shouts. 4. In interface audit, you see what you really are. You hide nothing from them or yourself. Pineander has always found it cathartic, unfashionable as that is. You're a fascist, Jane once said. Or at least a fucking sheep. I'm a pragmatist. You have no moral compass, Philo observed. They were on the Grand Arcade, the mercenary three together again, but this is the past dredged up by audit. I'm just trying to get ahead, Pineander replied, as he often did. I can't afford your ideals. That always shut them up. 5. He stumbles across the quad in post-audit days, wondering if Jane made it all up. She said all kinds of things recently. He assumed it was standard pre-exam washout, but maybe it was her new context for the empire in physics. It's hard for him to imagine such perspectives, on physics, of course, but more so on the Empire, on its revolution and great emanation. Space-time, she said in amazement, is quantized. There are particles of space-time. Our Empire has that much right. Pynander wonders why they let him go. He must have been audit confirmed as non-threatening. He's relieved to be walking free, but also a tad insulted. He loves Jane. Aren't they worried he'll raise trouble over her arrest? Is he really such a benign creature? They say audits can't lie. You're looking out of sorts, Pin. Professor Wig looms before him in her scandalously tattered robe. Her eyes are severe behind a screen of unkempt gray hair. Don't tell me you're washing out. I'm on a constitutional. Then march back to the gardens and sing odes. They're important to foundational physics as well as political theory. You're hardly a model pupil. I do what I can. Under financial pressure most students here couldn't imagine. Precisely why I think you can beat them in the end. Stop loitering and get to it. Pynander looks up at stacked worlds of orange glowing cloud. Wig follows his gaze and asks, what do you see? A poisonous atmosphere, an invisible shield keeping it at bay. Epic 37, verse 14 would activate lore on that, and you'll need more for an exam essay. That invisible shield, for instance, is a spin foam hack. How about the Darkling Sea? She means the body of methane surrounding the university's island. Pynander looks at the lichenous tundra turf of the quad, then toward the crypt and the arcade and dormitories. His little universe. If you're so concerned about my academic performance, how about a tip? I think I just gave you one. I mean insider stuff. Aren't you on the exam committee? I've never had a student ask me to help them cheat before, Wig chuckles. I'm sorry, Pin, I haven't been surprised by anything in quite a while. I could expel you, of course. Pynander flicks open the utility scroll on his belt and touches his bank account. So it's to be bribery, Wig smirks. I think you're losing your grip. I'm a pragmatist. And that may be your undoing. To activate lore, merely studying scrolls won't suffice, though it's essential. I just want to pass, Wig. Then you're lost and the exam will catch you up. Nobody cheats the exam, even with insider tips. It's not just a test of knowledge, otherwise we'd simply audit. What need of exams? Audit is passive. The exam requires your initiative, and that's when things can get emergent. Cryptic doggerel. Professor Wig, specialty. But this tidbit finds purchase in Pynander's activated mind and plants roots. 6. Raph shares a dorm room with 7 other students, all home and embunked, muttering incantations, rocking obsessively back and forth, scribbling verse on walls or unconscious. Pynander climbs onto Raph's bunk and finds her huddled in a nest of blinking, formatted scrolls. After staring a moment, she recognizes her visitor. I hope you didn't come to express your condolences, Pynander. I can't handle one more condolence. Jane's in detention. Detention, estivation, lost in a second dream time, possibly indefinite. Pynander can't imagine where they would put her now, and it's kind of death. Sorry, Raph says, all her bluster deflated. And I'm sorry about Ivier. He seemed solid to me, not the sort to fold under exam pressure. He wasn't, Raph frowns, studying her guest with realization. What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be studying? Just before they took her, she told me about Ivier's extracurricular reading. Just before they took her, she told me about Ivier's extracurricular reading. Raph's gaze darkens. Did you read it too? Pynander says, glancing at Raph's mess of formatted scrolls. I was tempted. I wanted to understand what that had done to him. She inhales, stifling a half sob. I couldn't take the plunge. He was always braver than me and more curious about everything before it really messed him up. He was railing against the Empire. He told me one line of this sinecure. Extinguish the emanation. Real counter-revolutionary stuff. With Jane, it was physics. He's already thinking of her in the past tense. Philo and IVA. Who knows who else committed straightforward suicide because of their new knowledge or dual mind or whatever it is, but Jane also killed herself in a way. I'm happy to commiserate all you want. I'm completely fucked exam-wise, so I'm done studying. But you? She follows Pinander's gaze to the blinking scrolls. You really want to read it? What about your scholarship? You're on a full ride from... where was it? Broken Pearl? And didn't you just come out of an audit? They know you know about sinecure. If she's really such a dangerous revelation, why would they let you go? Maybe it was a faulty audit. Maybe they didn't find his love of Jane wanting. Maybe they didn't find it at all. Maybe they missed other things as well. Maybe he's dangerous. I didn't delete it, Raph says. These scrolls were my study notes. I'm washing out, that's all. I didn't read sinecure, but IVR's distillations have scrambled me anyway. Even if I could stand singing another fucking ode, I wouldn't want to graduate from this place. I'll go home and my parents will resent me and I'll just be another trust fund wastrel until the whole system comes crashing down or I'm rich. But I didn't delete it. I didn't read her after all. What if she's as important as IVR had said? So I just passed her along to someone I thought could handle it. 7. Broken Pearl and the Mother of Pearl system is 20 light years away, but thanks to emanation technology, some of which Pinander came to understand just hours ago, the conversation lag is non-existent. We trust you're doing us proud, kid. Da's seemingly benign catchphrase resonates with its usual menace. Cue Ma's more insidious addendum. You won't forget the sacrifices we made to get you there. We know that. They look so old. In addition to the 7 lost estivation years, there had been dilation getting here from Broken Pearl. And the exam is in 3 days, Da. Like I said. All right, kid. Check your tone. Go easy on him, darling. He's under pressure. Doesn't give him call to act high-handed with his own father. Sorry, Da. Their backdrop is the old familiar bulkhead, encrusted with archaeological layers of his childhood, video prints of Pinander age 0 to 11. From 12 to the present, there was no family life. They consigned him to estivation without a second thought. In his darker moments, he thinks that was no better than selling him into prostitution or soldiery, but he can't afford to indulge such thinking. So what are your plans tonight? Ma asks. A loaded question, of course. Studying. Good lad, Da says. Pinander takes a subversive delight in the lie. He really should study, but instead he's going to crash his first student party. 8. Ethics are laws written on our hearts. Laws are ethics written on space-time. Never forget the beginner's mind. It's verse 95 of the 9th epic, but shrieked over a decadent soundtrack that pulses through the compound. The revelers sway drunkenly, heads hanging, amid rolling storm fronts of smart vapor. Here in the compounds, this is possible where the obscene wealth keeps campus laws at bay. Compare to these students, dorm denizens, still fabulously wealthy by empire standards, might as well be paupers. Pinander wonders what makes him. Wandering through ornate gardens in his black student robe, he draws looks from fashionably and scantily clad partygoers. There is a commotion ahead, a crowd psychedelically blurred by smart vapor. He gives it a wide berth, a fight, from what he can hear. Someone stole someone's meds. This contributes to Pinander's sense of being an alien here. It usually the most privileged students who engage in theft, violence, and drugs. He remembers Philo lobbing a canister of vandalism nano at the facade of the crypt. Pinander couldn't fathom this. Philo's clan paid a fortune to send him here, and he was an adult choosing to stay. And then there were Jane's countless transgressions up to and including her novel suicide. He wonders if he can raise her from the dead. Our great dream is the inevitable peace, entangled colonies, instantaneous civilizations, their inheritance. Verse 34 of the 20th Temple Ode. Pynander recalls it activating a fine blend of dark energy and political theory. That was just a few weeks ago, but it seems like centuries. He marvels at how the ancients subtly weaved physical and social science, making them only actionable together. In the face of that sorcery, this setting of odes to hedonist beats seems juvenile. Pynander, is it? The haze clears. He tries to hold his breath, but smart vapor must have gotten in. Before him sits an antlered figure on a phantasmagoric throne, a heap of mutated idolatry printed for the occasion. This person seems to be holding court. A modded menagerie is arrayed on either side of the throne. Students become mythic animal people, chimeras, and strange gods. Pynander struggles to focus on the Lord. You're that scholar shipper Philo mentioned. She wears a student robe artfully shredded to showcase her powerful and no doubt expensive musculature. The crystalline antlers erupting from her temples are not a mod, but the side effect of a perilous drug. Pynander can't remember the name of that particular moneyed pastime, but it strikes him as germane. Something to do with why he's here. He called you a pragmatist, so not to be inhospitable, but why are you here? I'm not winning the mask at any rate. This barb from a translucent, many-limbed demigod gets the menagerie giggling. Pynander becomes self-conscious. His head clears. That's enough. There will be decorum in the court. Pynander the pragmatic, you are welcome here and shall enjoy my protection. I was sorry to hear about Jane and Philo. Thank you, Decima. For it is she, Decima, the decimated queen of campus hedonists, consumer of more drugs and brain mods than anyone in university lore. If you seek safe harbor from the storm of thy grief, we of the happy hunting grounds can aid you. Surrounded by her tittering followers, Decima locks gazes with Pynander. She seems bored with her pantomime. Pynander guesses his presence ruins the mood. In contact with anything beyond her world of privilege, the bubble of her legendary status threatens to burst. The menagerie quiets down. The translucent demigod steps toward Pynander. I don't think you were invited. This one's eyes are yellows, and not from some reptilian mod. He twitches and glares, his varied arms spasming with potential. He's looking for this, I guess. Decima holds up a scroll. The demigod glares with keyed-up paranoia. What is it? What I don't get is why Raph handed it to me. We're not particularly close. Well, she thought. Pynander hesitates. Given your hobby, that is... I see. My mind is already so expanded and abused. Why couldn't I endure 2 lore contexts at once? Well, it's the reputation you've cultivated. She holds the scroll up to blood-red methane moonglow. Ours is the unremitting struggle, the emperor-less empire, the dynasty without a sire. Verse 46 growled pretentiously over the quickening beat. Pynander recalls the Lord activated. He wonders if Sinecure has new context for accelerated expansion and manifest destiny. I guess you haven't read her yet, he says. She was going to top off my evening. I heard about it, his agitation mounting. What have you heard? Please do enlighten the court. Well, just that it could turn everything upside down. It doesn't intrigue you? Why do you think I convoked this court? To expand our minds. And Sinecure might be the ultimate psychedelic. She could tear down everything we have. Smart Vapor makes flickering palaces of the suites bordering the gardens. The stupefied menagerie watches their queen. She flicks open the scroll. Don't! A demigod arm lashes out, unrolling like a tentacle. Pynander stares in amazement. He had no idea the seemingly ornamental limb was that functional. He wonders how much it cost. at least the full value of his scholarship. The tentacle withdraws and dangles the scroll over the demigod's head. Give it back. Decima rises from her throne. Forget everything else, the demigod says. But I can't lose you. Pynander finds himself in headlong motion, sprinting toward the translucent devil, even after he sees the scroll strobing, formatting. He knows it's too late, but he's charging. Maybe he has the vapors, as the elite students say. He's never felt this violent in his life. Decima, rushing from the other direction, looks how he feels. 9. The statue in the hall paramount towers over rows of holding seats, all currently empty except for Decima and Pynander. They slouch beside each other in their constraints, bruised and groggy. Decima twitches and sweats with a variety of withdrawals. I can't believe this is happening, Pynander says, his voice low in the temple-like space of the crypt. He has failed Jane, Sinecure, his parents. This isn't happening, Decima says. Nothing is. But beliefs make it so. Elitist twaddle. The statue, an imperial factor in flowing robes, glares down at them in judgment. Wald is a paragon of ancient officialdom, grave and cultured, fair-minded and sober, able to summon verse for any occasion. The Curriculum Council needed a model mind when designing their uploads. Now every sitter of the exam must strive to be Wald. Where's Nomic? Decima says. That fuckwit we beat to a pulp? In the infirmary, I guess. You need a certain level of health to estivate. You and I barely made the grade, I think. This seems to increase her confusion. Where are we? The crypt mush head, slated for punitive estivation. But you're rich and you live in the suites. But one of your own summoned campus police and let them in because a lowly scholar shipper laid hands on elite flesh, I guess. You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have spiked your vapor with whatever that was. Vault doors hiss open somewhere. Footsteps echo through the hall. This is it. He'll be joining Jane in perpetual twilight, not that he'll see her there. So much time already lost. Now more. Maybe this time he won't wake up. Unbind her. Two smartly suited people come around the statue, followed by a chastened-looking monk in a gray habit. The monk hurries over to barely conscious Decima and incants to her seat in his crypt monk speech. The off-campus suits stare at Pynander impassively. He guesses they're functionaries of some kind of Decima's powerful clan, lawyers maybe, or glorified enforcers warranted to throw money around. The chair releases Decima and the suits get her up. One of them puts an infuser to her neck. She twitches to life as they escort her away, and she glances back at him. I'm sorry. 10. The leaking, overcrowded estates hung from the ice ceiling of broken pearls crust. The inky void of the interior sea yawned below, a living metaphor reminding denizens of their precarious economic position. Pynander spent his childhood harvesting exotic proteins from the water filters. It could be traded at the bazaars and processed into all manner of black market commodities. Many of his fellow filter raiders, children all, only they could fit in the filters, succumbed to prion exposure, but somehow Pynander survived. Da took this for evidence of his son's special destiny. Da always thanked his abyssal gods that the mother of pearl system was entangled with the Empire. He prayed for the Empire at their home shrine. He prayed his son would sit the exam, become an imperial factor. Pynander never prayed, but he studied the shrine's myriad figurines. Among the abyssal gods were imperial figures, including a miniature paragon Wald, more crudely represented than in the crypt. Abyssal Lord. Da's eye squeezed shut, voice low. Queen of the Vents. Sireless. Paragon Wald, I petition for my only son. The gods seem to hear him. Pynander feels the universe subtly shift. He is no longer in Broken Pearl. Can you hear me? A familiar voice in a radiant void. Yes, you were estivating. His thoughts rally. Yes. You're still in the casket, but I've quickened you into semi-consciousness. He can feel the casket around him. How long was I under? A day? Who are you? Your long-suffering professor? Wake? What is this? Get me out of here. I will, but I wanted to give you a choice first. Concerning sinecure. You could still read her if you wish. The scroll got formatted. There's another? Explain yourself, Wig. No more obfuscation. There was a good reason for that. I couldn't be specific in case you got audited again. Ethics are laws written on our hearts. Laws are ethics written on space-time. Never forget the beginner's mind. That verse activated much lore. A core verse of Paragon Wald's own writing. It was foundational when his mind was modeled. One of the secrets it unlocked was the composition of the atmosphere held at bay by the university shield. The shield was an invisible mystery called a spin foam hack. The lethal brew of the atmosphere was revealed to him. Nitrogen, methane, a dash of hydrogen, ethane, propane, cyanacetylene, helium, argon, hydrogen cyanide. Pin! Yes. Stay with me. I can't wake you up completely or the casket's alarm gets triggered. I'm on the auditing council, at least for a bit longer. I've got you interfaced for audit right now. Wait. Last time, I got you released. I made sure I was your reviewer. And I'm dangerous after all. I think you could handle both contexts at once. I know I can't. It's not that I'm too old, but there's something to be said for an honest reckoning with yourself. The audits of my youth you taught me. I think you know what I mean. He never stopped thinking of the toxic atmosphere hanging over him. It was denser than the breathable mix inside the university bubble. He imagined the shield straining under the weight. The students around him never seemed troubled by it, never looked up into the hazy fathoms. He broached this with Jane and Philo, and they mocked his lack of understanding, though theirs went no deeper. What they really mocked was his lack of faith. You're interfaced, so I can link you to the faculty library. Later, he would come to understand the shield, the manipulation of space-time quanta, but this did not alleviate his sense of dread. With more verses came more activated lore, more insights on space-time, the foundational science of the Empire. It also meant space-time was the ultimate data storage medium. Nothing written on the great substrate could be erased. Here on campus, it was accessible only in the faculty library. The choice is yours, Wake says. And if I choose knowledge, what do you expect to happen? Based on what I saw in your audit, you survive the dual mind. You hold both contexts in your mind at once, become something new. A hybrid. You sit the exam and write essays that shake the empire. Or you go mad. 11. Ranging far over four-dimensional topographies of knowledge through valleys of species profiles, steplands of history, human and alien, you find piddling skeins of familiar lore. Your imperial conditioning renders most novelties abstruse. All that is alien or remote appears threatening, unfathomable. Paragon Wald was not the beacon of intellectual curiosity you've been sold. You search desperately for the works of sinecure. You spend subjective years searching. You grow old in the search, but eventually find her. Son by son, the future comes undone. With her first lines, a new conflicting context for the lore takes hold. Already Wald is no longer a paragon, but a venal, pretentious bureaucrat, a creature of vice and a status inheritor. And the empire itself? The emanation? Pin! It's Wig again, far away, across landscapes with your physical body. Throw illusions in the fire. Old men stare at glowing embers as though at runes to be deciphered. The Empire is no longer a beacon of hope, but a metastasizing thing, alive and ravenous and amoral. No, it's both beacon and cancer, and Wald is both paragon and degenerate. Your mind threatens to split along these contradictions. Work with me, Pin. She's dragging you across the estivation deck. Our escape window is short. Get up. Sinecure's new context is like a new language, forcing you to rethink the universe from a new lingual perspective. Sinecure's language dissects where Wald's embellishes. Sinecure is concise where Wald is purple, but you already experienced this. You're remembering it, in a sense. You were interfaced with the faculty library, and now you're not. The trauma of dual mind is still playing out in your skull, like a biome killer spewing nuclear winter years after impact. On your feet, or we're not going to make it. You saw Sinecure herself from two perspectives, from her own, a member of the Curriculum Council, secreting pieces of herself into the Wald-dominated model for the greater good of the universe, and from Wald's, who branded her a counter-revolutionary. That's it. You stumble along behind Wig, shivering in your estivation call. This will be it for me, the professor whispers, but that's okay. The least I can do, really. I cultivated my cryptic demeanor for years, in case someone like you or Jane came along, in case I had to talk around audits. They're going to get you, you say. Even dead, you'll be audited, so no matter what you've done in here, they'll be coming after me. Ever the pragmatist. That's right, Pin. And how did a hard copy of Sinecure's work get onto campus in the first place? It just occurred to you to ask her this. Wig runs to the edge of the hallway, muttering and gesturing her key at the door. Professor? Without turning to face him, she says, Yes, Pin. They're all on my head. Philo, Jane, all of them. Maybe you as well. Soon I'll be dead and audited, as you said. They'll be after you. You've got to change everything before that happens. I gambled with lives, and I'm going to pay for it. Rest assured, we'll be sitting the exam in a few hours. I think I bought you that much time. All this for essays by me? Your two minds war within your skull. You want to report this murderous descent. You want to forgive her sins, or at least set them aside and see her plan out to its logical conclusion. All for essays by you, and they'd better be good. They need to accomplish a paradigm shift. 12. The big day, Ma says. Her tense grin is nearly a snarl. Your mother is the slavish, brainwashed disciple of the Empire. Your mother, the slavish, brainwashed disciple of the Empire who sacrificed her only son on its altar. Your mother, a good citizen, someone who thinks for herself and chooses the Empire, the emanation, and the best possible life for her son. Are you prepared? Daw asks. Your father, superstitious, blindly laboring drone of a backwater colony, ignorant, unyielding, a monster. Your father, paragon in his own right, the kind of man on whose back the Empire rests. Your cramped 8-bunk room is a prison cell and a unique privilege. Pin? Are you okay? Answer your mother, kid. The ansible that connects you to them rests on quantized space-time. That is true in both of your minds, but the upshot is not mere entanglement, not just colonization. The physics kept me going, Jane once said. The grand mystery of it all? She puts it in a new light. You focus on the majestic, entangled oneness of the cosmos when you feel your mind threatening to disintegrate. Am I okay? I'm not sure how to answer that, Ma. Did you get any sleep? She asked, growing anxious. Of course not, Daw says. He's been studying all night, haven't you, kid? True, either way you look at it, you spent the night digesting the perspective shift of Sinecure. You've had an empire-affirming collision with a counter-revolutionary. You don't see how it can be both. You lean forward on your elbows and clutch your skull. Your 7 bunkmates are asleep. Do you have a headache? Oh, more of a mind ache. And you could make it go away. You could join those who went before you. It would be easy. You could use Philo's method, nice and quick. He's working hard. Little discomfort is to be expected. I'm proud of him. Da puts a hand on his wife's shoulder, a rare display of affection. He'll be okay. The kid won't let us down. He knows what we've sacrificed to get him there. Yeah, me. Excuse me? Me, Da. You sacrificed me. The hell do you mean? Ma is sobbing. You better apologize, kid. Ma? Da? I'm sorry, but I think I'm a counter-revolutionary. You snort, and the snort becomes a chuckle, and then you're cackling, tears streaming, your cellmates rising from their bunks to grumble, and you can't stop. "13. In the amber pre-dawn gloaming, the black-robed graduating class encircles a great bonfire at the center of campus. Each student is penning a verse of their choice. From the odes or epics or songs onto ceremonial wooden tablet, hooded professors wander the circle, peering over shoulders. You dip your brush in the nearest brazier well. Holding the tablet in your left hand, you apply the brush with your right. Ethics are laws written on our hearts. You murmur as you pen. Other students murmur around you. You glance up and see Decima about 106 degrees along the circle, nearly lost to view behind the fire. Her antlers have been shaved down to nubs. She is black-robed like everyone else and staring back at you intently. Laws are ethics, written on space-time, you pen. Closer, Raph frowns and dabs clumsily at her tablet. There's no sign of wig among the professors. Never forget the beginner's mind. This was Wald's favorite verse. Sinecure despised its meaning and intent, but as a connoisseur of propaganda, she admired its craft. You find it banal. The calligraphy is simple. You feel a professor at your back, inspecting briefly, and then moving on. Soon the professors have gathered closer to the fire, their backs to it, facing quadrants of students. Embody the text, one of them says. Embody the text, others repeat. You kneel with the other students in loose unison. You hold your tablet over a copper basin, angled 45 degrees as instructed. You drop your ink hemorrhaging brush in the basin. With your liberated right hand, you pick up the mug of water and pour it on the tablet. Your calligraphy blurs and runs. The inky water collects it in the basin. Soon you're standing basin held in both hands like the other students. Embody the text, the professors say, this time in chorus. This ritual's roots go far back in space-time, possibly to the origin world. Both Wald and Sinecure had a nostalgic fondness for it, a rare point of agreement between the ghosts in your head. You raise the basin to your lips and drink. The inky water is bitter, mildly nauseating, but you keep your composure. When everyone has drunk, the circle contracts, students approaching the fire with their blank tablets. You go with them, still of two minds, but alive, maintaining, not suicidal. For solace, you have more than the entangled oneness of the cosmos. You have Jane, you have the idea of her ambition, and you can only save her by favoring one context over another. You consign your tablet to the flames. It's time. 14. In your Spartan examination cell, you slouch over the dedicated exam scroll and read the first essay prompt. Politically contrast the revolutionaries who launched the empire with the counter-revolutionaries who have been trying to tear it down for millennia, using lore activated by verse 33 of Song 5, verse 56 of the Temple Odes, and verse 21 of the Paramount Epic. You have most of that, and some has been redundantly activated by Sinecure. It's multifaceted, letting you see it like no one before you. You think for a moment, put stylus to scroll, and begin to write. What are your thoughts on the story? You can leave us a comment or question at the Clarkesworld Magazine website itself, or you can go to the About Us page where all of our contact information is listed. We begin a whole nother year come the next issue. I do hope you can join us for that. So until then, I wish you well as you ring in the new year. I hope all those resolutions are going to come true. They all take a little bit of hard work and sweat, blood and tears. And with that, I do hope you join us on January 1st for a new issue. Until then, I bid you a very fond and warm and hopefully very, very temporary farewell.